Johnson Sakaja, Senator, welcome to the show.
Asante sana.
It's good to have you again on the situation.
Always a pleasure to be here.
So we were talking about 1992.
Yeah.
You were in Standard 2.
Standard 2.
20 years later, December 2012, records will show that this same young man was the first one to sign a coalition agreement under the new constitution.
Yes.
As chairman of TNA.
Incidentally, yes. And I still have the original copy.
You have the original copy?
Yeah, that is stuff of archives, you know. One day, we'll have it in the Presidential Library or Museum. That was the coalition agreement between TNA and the URP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, actually, you're right, 20 years later.
So historically, coalitions were a thing. And clearly, today, in today's politics, it would seem as though you're not able to function politically and otherwise, or it would be encouraged to enter into a coalition. Why is that? Because 20 years ago, it was the case. Today, it would seem as though it still is the case.
I think it's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it allows people to team up with others, despite without having to move from the comfort of their political parties. So I can stay in my SpiceFM party and team up with another one for the purposes of winning an election or forming majority in government. It is bad because it means our politics is empty. Because if we can team up and we have similar ideology, why are we not in one party?
Right, and then I can't push you.
Yeah, then so people are hedging. There's the fear of. I mean, if we can come together, and you can look at the political parties amendment, which we can discuss later, saying that you can have now something called a coalition party. So if we truly believe in the same thing, if we're coming together because of ideology, that this SpiceFM party believes in this, and Sakaja party believes in this, why not make it one party? Multipartism, now the real one, not this club hopping. Multipartism was not meant to give us just a plethora of parties, now to move us into tribal cocoons. The Dewa Kikuyu party, a Luo party. It was supposed to give us choice based on ideology. That you can know, for instance, like in many cases, in the States, you have the Republican ideology and the Democrat ideology. If I'm told Eric is a member of this party, I would almost predict how he'll vote when it comes to matters of the economy, big government versus small government, even other social issues. You'll be able to tell. Or Labour and Conservative in the UK. Now, we have, I think, 86 parties today in Kenya. Now, that is multi-partism, Many of them are briefcase parties. Many of them are parties that exist for the purposes of cashing in after a nomination. When there's a fallout, then I give you a certificate for 200,000 bob. That I don't think that was a dream of those who pushed for the repeal of Section 2A. I don't think that is why people were detained. I don't think that's what happened 20 years, then in 1992 when Mwai Kibaki had the certificate of DP. That is not what they were looking for. But we moved into that. That today, if you ask people, what is the major party in Ukambani? They will tell you. What are the major parties in Western? They'll tell you. So I think we are far behind and we're taking steps behind. One day I hope that then we'll have parties based on ideology. Because once you do that, anybody can become president. You'll have an El Molo becoming president because he might be the person who articulates best the ideology of that political movement. Then it's not about where are the Luos and where are the Luyas and where are the Kikuyus. For now, I don't see it.
But then, Mheshimiwa, there is always the argument about the evolutionary process of any political system. Where people start with what they know and understand. Tribal cocoons, people know and they understand. So if you form a political party along those lines, people understand, and it is easy for them to follow. Now, the idea of ideology, it is good on paper. It is good when people talk about any thinking that they have or anything that was written on 2 pages as an ideology. The practice of it, unfortunately, is almost untenable because something fundamental that is supposed to be in government called governance.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Is still a dream. It's something we hope for, we aspire towards. I'm arguing this. I'm saying there's a process that we go through, but that shouldn't be the excuse.
It's true, but, when you talk about political evolution and say our democracy is young, it looks like our political evolution is retrogressive because we are going back instead of forward. If you look at the 50s and 60s, the political parties we had in this country were based on ideology. If you go through what the tomboyers and the players then, the Lennox Boyd settlement, the Littleton Constitution, the debates between KADU and KANU. What about ideology? Whether it's Majimbo versus, a centralized system. And at that time, you could not say that KADU is a party of this community. Maybe the only difference you'd say it's big communities versus small communities.
It was a party of the minority communities.
But minority is better than saying this is a Kamba party or this is a Luya party, And you see, that was eroded after 1964 when now they came together. And then when KPU, later, broke off, and then it was proscribed. It became like a sect, So our political evolution is almost retrogressive. But when you think of it, really, I think it has a very direct correlation with the economy, and that's something people never look at. Yeah. So Tony Blair says in his book that the hard black versus white, or the diametrically opposed ideology have no more space in a country whose economy is developing, because the needs are the same. The manifesto of any party today will talk about water, we'll talk about roads, we need schools. It's about efficacy. So you will not see a very big difference between the manifesto of ODM and UDA. Yeah, it'll be very difficult to find that difference. But once you've sorted that out, ideology circles around softer issues. What do we think about when does life begin? What do we think about, even huge economic principles that have no space in a country where you're just trying to get people food? So there's two ways to look at it. But today, the political reality, 7 months on election, is that people will have to be in coalitions. People will have to team up, because no party right now individually can make a straight shot at the presidency.
Mheshimiwa, what you're saying is absolutely true.
Yeah.
But I am thinking historically of countries that, because of the systems they had, allowed for dominance of one particular party. We had it. Germany learned from that, and they have, not as policy, it's legislated.
Yeah.
It isn't possible in a country like Germany for any one party to actually ever become completely dominant.
And you see, again, that goes hand in hand with their structure. So you have the Social Democrats, you have the Christian Democrats, etc. at the top level. But no one focuses so much on that, because they're landers. Their form of federalism allows other parties that you never hear of to thrive in the different landers. And so I mean, if devolution worked for us today, honestly, how it was envisioned, how it was supposed to be, there'll be much less pressure on who becomes president, because your country is working the opportunities, and there's cohesion that comes as a result of equalizing opportunities down there. So there'll be less fast. People will be thinking, okay, in Wajir, who do we have here to give us, the goods of government? I think, as you've said, it's a place we're going to get to, such that then we will have, a party that, I'm in this party because I believe in this. Because today, if you tell me that even on a debate on a bill, or on BBI, or on a constitution, that a professor from this community will think the same way as a cobbler from the same community, but differently from the professor from another community and a cobbler from that community. It's not about ideology. There is no special, I don't know, maybe there's something in that bill that is expressed in that language that they only understand. But, we pretend to be there, but we're not yet there.
Is this a journey? Is this part of our growth and journey in multipartism? Evolving system of democracy that, in fact, we're even localizing it. So, in the West, we look at it, ideology and all. But in Kenya, because of where we are right now, we are looking at it from the immediate and most basic need, family and then tribe. So it's all formed from that. We support our leaders who will bring something close to our home because they belong to our community, because they come from our village. Because they are our family members.
The problem that we have, and I'm very happy even as a leader in Nairobi, because even in this election, I've seen a pattern in Nairobi, that the harsh tribal divide in terms of who people are voting for is being eroded in Nairobi. I'll tell you, young people are thinking beyond that, especially the young people. Older people are thinking practically, look, we know what it means now to have had a governor of this kind, or a president of this kind. It's affected my business directly. I'm going to vote based on issues. For us, it is happening. I can be able to see it. But for the rest of the country, why this happens is because we've not created an identity that supersedes the tribe. we've not told Kenyans what does it mean to be a Kenyan? What is a Kenyan identity? Are we just 50 million people stuck between 586,000 square kilometers who need to get along? When you don't create that identity, where someone does not derive any good from being a Kenyan, you go to what we call the least common denominator, which is your tribe. Because you find identity within your tribe. Such that even in those tribes, I mean, like a homogeneous place like Somalis, where the tribe is one, they now go to the lower common denominator, which is a clan.
Yep.
So you have clans, and countries that have been able to deal with that have had to be very deliberate. If you read the story of Lee Kuan Yew, he was telling people, if you're ethnic Malay, you will stay next to a Chinese and whatnot to make it happen. In the States, they had to partner with showbiz and media to create, Uncle Sam, to create a brand, Land of the Free, Home of the Brave, Captain America, and all of that. Because you had to create an identity that is bigger than this small one. But you see, and this is something I believe in so strongly. In the last parliament, 2013 to 17, I used to chair a committee called National Cohesion and Equal Opportunities. And at first I thought it's a mistake. Why would you call a committee National Cohesion and Equal Opportunities? But when I thought about it more, there's no way you'll have that Kenyan identity or cohesion without equalization of opportunities. So until a mother in Nanyuki knows that a child has the same shot at life as that of a parent in Kisumu, that you know that no matter where you're from, you'll have the same chance, you'll have the same opportunity. If you're the best accountant in Kere, no matter your tribe, you can rise to be Director General. If you're the best guy in the military, no matter who is president, you can become the Chief of Defense Forces. Let me tell you, you'll have cohesion, and then we'll have a greater national identity. So that is a journey we need to get to.
But who's responsible for pushing that? I mean, sure, it's all of us, but then there are those who are graced with the platforms of doing this on a regular basis. Is there an understanding? Because you're talking about the mother in Nanyuki understanding that her child should have the same opportunity as somebody across the country.
Yeah.
Does the one who has the platform, politicians, for example, would-be leaders in the future, know that, hold on a minute, I really shouldn't be here for my personal or political expediency.
Yes.
What I should be here pushing is for the country as a whole, as one unified force. But how often do we hear those messages? How often do we hear?
It's very rare
That you're saying what we should be going for. And I'm not talking about the window dressing thing that we see on the platform during rallies. I'm talking about real messaging from current would-be future leaders who are talking about, you know what, folks, we need to be going beyond this.
I mean, I don't want to point blame, but I'll give you a very recent example. In the past few hours, I was in Nyamira yesterday, and I said a couple of things. One of the things I said is that a mother in Nyamira feels the same pain when a child can't get food as that one in Nyeri. And the same, agony when the child hasn't. And the crowd got it, and they're like, yes, there's more that unites us than divides us. Then I said one or two things about Musalia Mudavadi. The first part was not covered by anyone because it's not fun. It's not interesting. It don't make for the headlines, But I was talking about why, there's more that unites us than divides us. And I've been very consistent with that message, but you'll never find it on your media. So it's all of us. There are those who voice out these things and we draw pictures, vivid pictures, about how when Mariga scored for Kenya or Injera, we all celebrate. When the athletes are winning, no one says that is a Kale. But then when we come down here to do our video, whatnot, those messages need us to work with. Because there are a lot of brilliant young leaders, even older leaders, with that kind of thing. But it's not fun. It doesn't make it conversation that is exciting. You want to say, okay, this is very important. Now that is the headline that people are going to focus on from what we say. But so it must be a consultation. And it can take time. But whoever is in charge, because I believe that the reason why the president is in charge, it must be left with someone. And it must be consulted. So there is what the private sector must do. There is what the media must do. There is what government must do. When government does it, not just by talking, but by showing that if I am president, the bulk of my ministers do not have for my community. In fact, when we're talking about DB, I had some radical proposals. I said, if you president and deputy, and then maybe you have prime minister and those deputies and 22 cabinet secretaries, no two of those people should be from the same community. Yeah. So that even if we don't get, because we have 43 communities, yet there are 22 positions, we don't think we have not gotten because we're being looked down upon. It's just not yet our chance.
Yeah.
But today there are people with so much bitterness. There's somebody today working in a state parastatal or working in the military or in the police, and they know they're the best.
But they will never get the chance.
Never rise. There's a guy in Central Bank who knows, because I am a Turkana and I doubt that Turkana will be president, I will never be the governor of Central Bank. You know, so you'll never have cohesion, because that person back at home will also make sure his house girl is from his community. Sure. He'll also make sure that now, I must, it changes our thinking. I think this is a wider conversation we need to have, but it's the problem. Once we fix that, we're going to fix our country in many respects.
Mheshimiwa, do you really think that this quest we have for being Kenyan and being one people will ever be achieved if we do not energetically and realistically tackle what we like referring to as our historical injustices?
I don't. We need to. Of course, when a vehicle has a bigger windscreen than the rearview mirror, and we don't drive backwards. But the thing with history and these historical injustices and the stories you're told, even for those who, for instance, the generation I'm talking about of club hopping, aka multipartism, and may not understand those things, they're raised with some bitterness, yeah, and
it isn't some,
a lot of bitterness,
yes,
a lot of bitterness, and unless there is effort, and solving these things doesn't take much. I remember one of the things that have been mentioned in the TGRC report, which again is lying somewhere, was an apology by the government for the historical injustices, especially Wagala massacre and what happened in the north. I remember the day President Uhuru Kenyatta actually made that apology during one of the State of Nation addresses. For the rest of us who have not gone through it, we just thought his spoken words. I saw certain colleagues shedding tears, and they felt relief. Some of them from Wajir, some of them from Mandela, from that area. That apology for them meant more than even putting aside $1 billion shillings to build a monument for historical injustices, etc. There's certain responsibility, because government exists in perpetuity. It might not have been him who did it, or the next government, but just acknowledging that, look, we wronged each other on many respects. If you remember what was this, the Justice and Reconciliation thing in Rwanda, that people came and said, look, I did this to your family, I did this.
The Gachacha courts.
Because as Africans, our justice is not necessarily retributive, but restorative. But until you have those conversations, it'll be very difficult, because everyone will be trying to get ahead. Yeah? But you can't get ahead when you're trying to get even. So that you wait for our time. Mutaona. Then okay, wacha sisi ile siku tutapata. An eye for an eye, we will lose our sight. So until we have these conversations, and with an end not to necessarily punish, but to acknowledge. The communities in this country, they just want that acknowledgement, recognition. The people who have just fought to be acknowledged as a community in Kenya, for instance, to be accepted as who they are, for their culture to be respected. I think we need to do that. But as we do that, as I've said, the rearview mirror is smaller than the windscreen. What are those specific things we must do to ensure equality of opportunities for all? Inclusivity. And it's small things. Some people say, oh, these are just jobs for the boys. But I can give you an example. If you go to City's Place, for instance, yeah, and you even create tarmac until everybody's house, until the door, but they don't see Baba somewhere in government, they'll feel excluded. Imagine you're a nation of nations. And that's why in some parts of the world, political systems like consocialism exist, where even they rotate and they say, okay, let's all come together corporately. And that was the only reason I supported some of the arguments within the BBI. But really, it is about equalizing opportunities. That I know that if, I'm a country of meritocracy, that if I'm good at this, I know I'll make it, and I don't have to be in Nairobi to make it. My child in Lamu has the same shot at life, same quality of education, same quality of healthcare as a child in Kisumu, as a child in Kitale. That is when I will start seeing a change in how we focus our country.
And I think our political leaders know this very well. They know that, down at our communities, we are looking at those opportunities being representation, being inclusivity in decision-making. And our politicians have taken advantage of that by making it appear as if when I have been appointed, then our representation works. Whereas it's still a fallacy. And that's why you'll see, for example, right now, you'll talk about right now, why is it that people in Mount Kenya would complain about the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta and the administration of Uhuru Kenyatta? There's divided and sharply divided opinion on what he's achieved, what he hasn't. Why is it that you'd see those kind of conversations still happening despite electing a leader to national office and being central to? It's because the politicians, the political class, those guys that you hobnob with, have made sure that the discourse is, if one of us is up there, read me, then we are okay.
You know, it's a mix of both. So someone from certain areas that have been in power may not have the authority to say that, because you've been there. You've had someone there and you've demystified it. Somebody from a community that has never tasted that power. Because you remember we spoke about identity. And identity gives pride. Yeah? That even now we can walk with our heads up high. You know, from where the part of the country I'm from, and for many times we've called ourselves the grievance community, and said, just let this thing pass, that that part of the country, to ski a kitu.
Yes.
And it may not amount to, political decisions are not rational. Political decisions have nothing to do with facts. It is emotional. It is how people just feel a sense of pride that actually, yes, even us we can, and we can make it. Now, the problem is the politician has now transferred that pride, and that's why they don't want that national identity, to say that, our pride will come from Sakaja being elected. That if Sakaja has been elected now, and of course Sakaja will go and do things for himself or for his community, So those conversations need, because we give politicians too much power. I don't know if it's an African thing where we've had kings and big chiefs, that we have this big man thing, but we've given them too much power. In many countries, I was in Canada recently, just to finish, a few months ago when they were doing their elections. A country like Canada, a huge economy, one of the biggest economies in the world, was having a presidential election in 2-3 weeks, and you could not tell. There are no rallies. You just see there are no billboards. Just some small banners on outside people's gardens. There are no trucks, loaders passing. You vote for this guy. Because they have reached a quality of life where there's equality of opportunities. That it doesn't matter who is in charge, but the rule of law we have, the kind of society we've created, will be good, will be okay. And many countries, for us, for 4 years, we're happy about it's our time. Our person must be there. So we must get to that level.
But you see, that example is often given, and if one were to speak bluntly, developed nations developed on the back of other nations.
Yes.
That they subjugated completely and mercilessly.
That's true.
I've said that and I'll just leave it there.
But it's true.
However, if you look at the progress we've made as a nation, the creation of the counties is one of the most beautiful things that I have actually ever witnessed, personally, in the years that I have lived, and there are few. When we talk about this community leadership and the issues that have to do with our tribes, in my mind, the county system sorted it out. County is yours. The leader is yours.
The corruption
is yours. The opportunities are yours. And now, forget everything cascading back to the national government and the president and the deputy. No. If you look at the billions that the counties have received, and they've all received billions, some hundreds, some tens of billions, simple question that is asked, okay, what is it do you see in these counties that represents the money that they have been given?
And in some counties you can see it.
That is precisely my point.
Yeah. Some counties you can, and I'm glad you've said that, because when I was fighting for Nairobi to be returned as a county, I was like a lone voice in the wilderness, and not even close to John the Baptist, but I was the only voice. Even my colleagues were like, we were told not to touch a comma. You remember one of the versions of BBI had said Nairobi should be done under the national government. I think last time I came here, we explained why. I was giving that argument, because if devolution is the biggest gift that we've given to this country, why then make 10% of this population not be eligible for that gift? And I kept saying, look, we can make Nairobi work. Let's make Nairobi work. Because two people have not been able to do it, doesn't mean it cannot be done. I think in the same breath, we've had now, the second generation of governors of devolution. In the first, season 1 of devolution, counties were doing actually very badly. Most counties were even collecting less than the former councils were collecting in terms of own source revenue.
Yes.
And I know there was a huge, and the UNDP helped. There were a lot of county support, and the revenue issue started being sorted out. And some places like Wajir and Mandera saw their first tarmac in 50 years. They started seeing water systems coming, and there have been great successes. It's always easier to talk about what's negative, but there are certain things that have actually worked. The second season of devolution is where then now we started seeing MCAs understanding that, look, we have an oversight role. And we've seen impeachments, we've seen more accountability. It is not where it should be. But I believe the next season of devolution, where I hope I'll be one of the people implementing it as CEO of Nairobi, we'll see now people really receiving the fruits of devolution, inclusivity, an organized county. A place where from your estate, wherever you stay, you have a say in what your taxes are doing for you there, because that is when, devolution is based on the principle of subsidiarity, that a service is best offered at the lowest level compatible with the benefit of that service. So area resident associations, within the estates, you know what you need in pipeline, you know what you need in your estate. Now I have a 40 billion budget. How comes you guys can't participate in us saying, look, here, this is my priority, instead of just having a guy up there at City Hall sitting and deciding
where the money should
go. And that's why I said we must break down Nairobi into boroughs, at least 4 boroughs to begin with. The person in charge of roads in Kayole cannot be the same person dealing with roads in South Sea, or water. And if you have an issue with rates in Karen, you don't have to you must deal with it at Langata. Once season 3 of devolution now presents that, because you have dealt with a lot of the human resource issues, we've set up the structures, you have people in place, I think people will start receiving the true fruits of devolution. And that's what we intend to do in Nairobi County, for instance.
You know what's a bit sad, though, is that as we're having all these political campaigns and formations of one alliance versus another, we are not seeing a lot of prominence being given to devolution.
Yeah.
In terms of messaging. Not One Kenya Alliance, not UDA, not the other one is what? Azimio. Right? We don't see that. So, for instance, I think you're in One Kenya Alliance. We see you going around to the One Kenya Alliance meetings.
Yeah.
Yes? So, One Kenya Alliance, for instance, what is it that it says about devolution? How is it working to ensure that many of OCA members join the county assembly, join the county executive?
Again, I think those are some of the messages that have fizzled out because of the political noise. Because I remember when we had this meeting of OCA with all the parties talking about harmonizing the different policy approaches of the parties to come together. Devolution was very prominent. I visited around 6 or 7 counties with His Excellency Musalia, and the first thing he would do is to go visit.
Excellency.
Yeah, he's a former vice president. His Excellency.
Musalia
Mudavadi. Yeah, I mean, you know those titles go.
Yes, we get it.
Yeah, even Prime Minister is called Prime Minister.
Sure. Right, honorable.
And we don't even have it in the Constitution anymore. But anyway, and the first port of call would be the county assembly and the governors and the MCAs, and really to encourage them. They had thoughts around the BBI at that point. We're waiting to hear the manifesto of any of the parties. I think what has become more fancy to report on about the politics, and I think the future of our coalitions, maybe we might have 2 or 3 opposed, possibly even diametrically opposed sides, where one is saying the priority in this country is about unity. Azimio la Umoja. I think they will focus more on the issue of unity and unifying this country, and the other coalition will focus on the economy. I see that as the 2 distinct ways of looking.
There are only 2 coalitions.
The 2 major ones, or if they resolve to being 2. Right now there are 3. I'm not too sure whether they'll remain as 3. But one thing I know is that there'll be 2 thoughts. The 2 thoughts can be by one party and another, or 2 parties will think one way. But the 2 different distinct thoughts, I don't think there'll be a third thinking. It will be about what is the priority. Is it about unity first, or is it about the economy first? And we've seen different similar messages. You've seen Musalia Mudavadi very keen about the macroeconomic issues.
Yeah.
He talks about public debt. He talks about the cost of living. He talks about government expenditure, and he deals a lot on the macroeconomy. I've had also some dizzy ideas from some people saying, "Oh, let's cut tax into half." Like, surely, I was like, people are trying to scat around the issue of the economy. I won't mention who that was. We hear the UDA people, the deputy president, talking about microeconomic issues. About small businesses, about trying to create a fund to help.
Not a fund. Funds.
Many funds.
Funds.
Okay, what I've heard about is a fund that will, I think, 100 billion or something.
Yeah. That's the magic number.
That's the number they've been banding around to give small businesses so that you can raise them from the bottom up. So there's macroeconomy, there's microeconomy. This other side, their talk about the economy is about let's give everybody who has no job 6,000 bob. And then you have possibly the Cobra effect.
And there's Babacare.
And Babacare. Babacare is, Obamacare, Oparanya did it in Kakamega, Oparanya Care. I think it's something we must all do. When I was campaigning for governor in 2016, I was talking about Sakaja Care, where I said 500,000 households must get insurance for health, and that's important. But economically, the issue has been, job relief, or what we call in some parts of the world, minimum guaranteed wage, and so those are the topics that we now need to start focusing on as we move to the election.
Universal basic income.
Oh, universal basic income, which has its pros and cons, because you have what we call the Cobra effect.
But these are all just talk.
I don't think so.
At the end of the day, the coalitions are going to be tribal.
I hope not.
So the Western Kenya Coalition, which has Ford Kenya, Amani, what is Jirongo's party?
I don't even know.
It's Jirongo's party, and then it has KANU and Wiper. It's a tribal bloc and tribal blocks coming together. Then you have Azimio, again, looking at tribal blocks. On the big tribal, it's all tribal blocks.
We can focus on the blocks,
which we shall just say, this one, our difference here is like you told us in 2013. Our difference is because we are young, we are digital, and all, and the others are not. They are analog. Same difference.
I don't think so. You see, you can tell how sincere somebody is in his messaging because if they are consistent. If you're so consistent on a message that it's even become your brand. Today, if you ask any Kenyan, which politician has been consistently talking about the economy, they'll tell you who it is. They'll tell you who it is. Or who has consistently been talking about the need to unify this country, they'll tell you who it is. And so, in as much as we may choose to look at this coalition in terms of the tribal makeup of their leaders and their old approach of galvanizing their communities, which is something that is happening and it has been there, we can also decide to change the conversation and create a juxtaposition between the distinct messaging they're having on certain issues. So if this team is talking about Babacare, whenever you have a politician from UDA or that other side, ask them, what is your policy on health? Because Kenyans are not hearing that. Yeah. If this other team is talking about universal basic income, you should ask the other people, what is your strategy on dealing with unemployment? Then we start guiding the conversation because it must be guided.
When are these opportunities presented to sit down or to even have more than 5 minutes with those who are presenting these positions? And I can have 5 minutes to ask you, because in a day, we're having people hopping from one place to the next during campaign season. And then when do I ask you the how? Because that's the question we've been having in this room. And I've said that if you want to see if somebody is genuine, really, yes, they would be consistent in their messaging, but then they would be able to explain to you
in detail
the how. That means they have an intimate knowledge of this information.
Yes.
And because they have an intimate knowledge of that, means that they've bothered to study it.
Exactly.
That's the only way you can go through it. Yeah. It's not going to be just the top layer. You've gone in depth and you figured this can be a way I can do this.
The platform is provided by you.
But when beyond Sakaja coming and sitting in this room and having this conversation with us, and you're saying now we ask, if you say you're going to have Babacare and you're Nyamira now, Kitale the next minute, and then you're somewhere else in a day, when are these opportunities being provided for people to share this information?
That is why we have presidential debates. That is why we should have policy debates where you have the secretary generals of these parties coming. You guys have the platform right now. Hundreds of thousands of Kenyans are listening to us, and I think watching us on KTN Home. Yeah, they can be able to, for instance, if you want to talk about Nairobi, I'm very, very ready to go into details of how we'll make Nairobi work. You understand? And I'd be happy to do that with the other people who have an opposing view. Then we educate the citizen and let them be able to make that decision. This, it is you guys who give us a platform. Today, if I do a rally in Jacaranda ground, it's only 2,000 guys who listen to me.
Yeah, but
unless a media was broadcast.
Why don't you engage those 200,000 people or 2,000 people with the how? When you parachute into Nyamira, for example, and then you get out of Nyamira at the end of the day, how much time have you dedicated into explaining the how?
You see, now, that's what I'm saying. The best platform for that is media. That's the best platform. You guys should say, today, we're going to have these two sides telling us the how. You know, we many times we downplay the actual role you guys have when it comes to democracy. Because you determine the questions you ask. I didn't come here with my set of questions. You know, if we started at 8 with how, we'd have had an hour of how. The role you guys have in this election is amazing. And I hope you can come together, all media houses, and decide as we move to the election, maybe after April when parties are on the nomination, April, May, we'll have a policy debate on issues. We'll say, okay, this week it's healthcare, let's hear. This other week it's agriculture, let's hear. Because we don't want, even I don't want to vote for somebody who is very heavy on verbosity but very light in terms of, actual policy interventions. Because that is why you elect a government, to implement certain policy. I need to come and tell you, okay, how am I going to do the mass transit in Nairobi?
That's true.
I need to tell you, how will I make sure that we give guys jobs in the city? And then you hear whoever, they keep creeping up every day. I don't even know how many I have still. But how many opponents who have come up for the same seat, what they will say they want to do?
How many are you now? 13?
I'm not sure. I'm just
How many want to be Nairobi governor?
Are we going to want to break it?
No. Why are you guys?
No, I'm just asking. You see,
Yeah.
this galvanizing of votes
Yes.
in tribal blocks, in my mind, is not an issue. The issue is when you galvanize people on tribal blocks and you castigate and you in a very toxic way, you brand other communities negatively, rather than individuals. That's where the problem comes in. Because to be realistic, given the areas we all come from, how are you going to galvanize people without you talking to a community? And that community is part of that tribe.
Yeah.
So the false notion that we are Kenyans without our tribes, I'm calling it a false notion. And this false notion that tribalism is bad, it is not. Diversity has never been bad. It is how it is used and how it is presented and how it is used to explain ills that have been committed, things that leaders know they ought to have done, blaming it on other communities. Is this never-ending cycle of leaders taking positions where the tribe card is what they use to explain everything that they did not want to deal with? That's where the problem is, in my view.
I agree and disagree. I disagree. You see, tribes are not bad. In fact, the preamble of our constitution talks about the beauty of our diversity. Tribes are not bad. But the ism is what is bad, the tribalism. That vote for me because I'm from this tribe. That anybody who is not of our tribe does not deserve leadership because they're not ours. Tribalism is where you become an ethnic chauvinist and believe that, look, you might not have the opportunity, for instance, to exercise your tribalism because maybe you're not in public space, so you're not making appointments. But many Kenyans should ask themselves, why is it that your house help must be from this same community? Or that this worker must be from that community? Then you expect you to act differently in public office. Tribalism is what I think is wrong.
Mheshimiwa, if I come from a place called Muhoroni, okay? If I'm vying for a seat, which tribe do I expect to vote for me?
Of course, Muhoroni.
Yeah, precisely, they're Luos. So I'm simply saying, what you say makes sense. You're talking about at the national level.
Yes.
But the ascendancy to leadership, unless you are in a big town,
like Nairobi.
Or Nakuru, just a big town, which is cosmopolitan, it won't happen. You are going to be voted for by people who speak your language. That's how it works.
I'll give you an example. In the last election, I voted against somebody from my community.
Yes.
And so it was never an issue. But I was able to get votes from both Jubilee and ODM because we talked issues. We spoke about issues. And that is why I had, I think, 840,000. And my party leader had 600 and something thousand, 700,000. Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga had just hardly 800,000. Because we could be able to say, look, I am Nairobi. We have 43 communities. There is no Kikuyu pothole or Luo lack of water or Kamba, lack of traffic. All our issues are the same issues. And I wish, and that's why for me I can't do rural politics. It's very difficult. The people who thought I'll go to the rural area, all I know is Nairobi. You go there, we're told, Janyako alikuwa mchawi, your grandfather denied who what. Me, I know the urban politics of issues. So tribe is not bad, but making someone know that your ascension in life will be because of your tribe, or the reason you will not get an opportunity will be because of your tribe. That is what is negative.
Right.
So they can be positive. Let's bring our diversity to the fore. In Nairobi, we're going to be having a Nairobi Cultural Festival annually, where we're going to do art and music and dance and have food from all communities. That is something we're going to be doing annually to now sell the spirit. What is the soul of this city? That is a positive way of looking at where we are from, because we are from somewhere.
Mheshimiwa, you got it right
Yeah.
when you talked about opportunities.
Yes.
The absence of it is what helps heighten the ism that you talked about.
The ism, the negative aspect
Yes,
of it.
because if it was understood that irrespective of where I come from,
Yeah.
I have an equal opportunity.
You can be anything.
It wouldn't matter.
But it's
And
not
you see-
understood at this
Oh,
moment.
no, it isn't.
There are
we need
very, unfortunately, there are very many people, even leaders,
Yeah.
who actually feel that if I am not from a particular place, then I'm out
I
of
had,
the bracket already.
I had a very sad thing, and I wanted to text her, but she's in a different party. That my women rep was being told, for instance, that because of her community and because of how they've decided to share the other seats, she cannot vie again. I saw that online. I wanted to ask her why. Because I think they want a governor and a senator from the same community. I said that should never be the issue. And that is what we fought in 2013 with Mike Sonko. You remember we were being told, oh, a certain community wants this seat. Now, does Nairobi need a Luya governor or a Kikuyu governor?
Or does it
Or
need-
does it need a
does it need
governor?
a
Or does it
governor
need a
of
competent
Nairobi?
governor?
Yes. A competent governor. Because as I've told you, there is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. Our issue is the same. So I want to encourage her wherever she is, that if what I've heard is true, she must stick her guns. That is politics of the past, and it has no space in Nairobi. If she's competent, she's done well, let her go for it.
So, Senator, as we conclude the conversation this morning, future of political coalitions in Kenya, what's the immediate future? What do you see as we get into this election?
I think the immediate thing that we must do is actually really this period we have, get young people to register to vote. Tell them how important it is, and that bad leaders are elected by good people who do not vote. That's, I think, the immediate thing that we must do. Now, in the coming weeks and days, there'll be a lot of, it is the season, that mud season. People are going to talk to each other. People are going to form, coalitions. People are going, and conversations are going on. And what we've said, and I think what I've said with Musalia Mudavadi and on his behalf, is that let no one choose for your friends. Yeah, talk to everybody across board. See who you can team up with as you go for the presidency. Some people have tried to define for him who his friends are and who his friends should not be. And he said no. There's no one with political leprosy in this country. There's no political leper. Let us talk and think about this country first. Because the reason why we fought for democracy, people have died for it. People have been beaten up. What Kina Njoya have gone through, and even the Railas and whatnot, was for us to have freedom of association, freedom of speech, freedom to come together with whoever it is and present your agenda to the people. The bad thing I saw yesterday, and I'm sure all of you saw it, the infusion of violence in our politics, I think must be condemned by all, to the highest level, and by whoever does it.
Yeah.
Whatever side it is, the remarks even that are coming out, I remember what the remarks made in Eldoret, and then the response made by Nyonka and Kisi, we cannot let our country slide to that level. And as politicians, I think we need a pact to the media. I remember when I was chair of a party, I had the opportunity to say, look, can I sit down with the leaders of the other parties and we agree that if we're having an event and one of my speakers slips and says something divisive, the media, please don't cover any part of that event. If all parties agree to that, then that toxicity won't be there.
Won't be there.
Asante sana.
Asante sana.
Senator Johnson Sakaja with us in the studio this morning talking about the future of political coalitions. He'll tell us soon which way Oka is going.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.